You are in a locked room in Moab, watching a left-handed man drive an 18-inch blade into a king. The handle vanishes into the fat after it, and the assassin steps out and calmly locks the door behind him. This is a scene from the book most pastors quietly skip, the darkest book in the Bible, where every chapter runs darker than the one before, and the God who thundered at Sinai grows strangely, deliberately quiet. 12 rescuers rise across its pages, Ehud with his dagger, Jael with her tent peg, Samson with his ruin, and by the final verse, everyone did what was right in his own eyes. I have taught history for 30 years, and I have never found a book, sacred or secular, that is this honest about how far a people can fall. Most of us were handed the Sunday school version. Gideon squeezing his fleece, Samson flexing at a pillar, a flannel board hero or two, cleaned up for the children's table. But the book of Judges is not a children's book. It is the record of a nation coming apart at the seams, one generation at a time, and it will not look away from a single thing. I've come to believe that honesty is the whole point. Here is what I want you to hold before we take one more step. Judges is not a list of heroes. It is a spiral. Picture water going down a drain. The same circle, again and again, but every pass a little lower, a little faster, a little closer to the dark at the center. Othniel, Ehud, Deborah, Gideon, Jephthah, Samson. Each name is one turn of that wheel, and each turn drops us further than the last. I will show you the blade in a king's belly, the peg through a general's skull, the vow that swallowed a man's own daughter, the strongest man alive, grinding grain in the dark with his eyes gouged out. I am not going to soften them, and I am not going to resolve them for you yet, either, because the real question of this book was never who these people were. It is who this book was written for. Somebody sat down, long after the blood had dried, and arranged this descent on purpose. Somebody decided the story of Israel's rescuers should be told as a fall and not a parade of victories. Why? Who needs a nation's collapse laid out chapter by chapter, getting darker every single time? Sit with that question a second. Don't answer it yet. I'll wait. I believe that when you finally see where this book is going, you will never read those flannel board heroes the same way again. The ending is the key that unlocks everything before it. The last verse reaches back and rewrites the first. So stay with me. We're going to walk down this spiral together, all the way to the bottom, and only at the bottom. In the worst dark this book has to offer, will I show you what all that darkness was actually for. To read Judges, you have to understand the machine running underneath it. Chapter 2 lays the whole thing out for you, like an engineer handing you the blueprint before the building falls. The children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. That is the first gear. So he handed them over to their enemies, and they were oppressed. That is the second. Then they cried out, and God, in mercy, raised up a judge to save them. Third gear. The judge dies, and the people go right back to doing worse than before. And the wheel turns again. Sin. Servitude. A cry in the dark. A rescue. Then sin again. Judges 2, verses 11 through 19, is the engine of the entire book, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. But here is the part that took me years to really feel. It is not a circle. It is a spiral. Each time the wheel comes back around, Israel is standing on lower ground. The first oppressor is a foreign king. By the end, the enemy is Israel itself. The early judges pray and fast. The later ones make reckless vows and chase women. I believe the writer built it this way on purpose, so that you would feel the floor dropping beneath you, and listen for the refrain that keeps surfacing as things get worse. In those days, there was no king in Israel. He says it again and again. Every time the darkness deepens, that same line comes back, like a man tapping the same nerve to see if you're still awake. Now set the scene, because geography is destiny here. This is the world after Joshua and before the kings. A gap of maybe 300 years with no throne, no capital, no standing army. The book of Joshua ends with the land conquered on paper. The book of Judges opens by quietly admitting the truth. The job was never finished. Chapter 1 is a list of failures. Judah could not drive out the people of the valley because they had chariots of iron. Manasseh did not drive them out. Ephraim did not. Zebulun did not. Over and over, the tribes settled down beside the very people they were told to remove, and the Canaanite altars stay standing on the high places. Picture that country, not the flat green farmland we imagine. A rocky spine of limestone hills running down the center, terraced villages clinging to the slopes, olive groves and thorn brush, and deep wadis that flood in winter and bake in summer. Small clans scattered, each behind its own wall, each doing its own harvest, each with a shrine to a local god, just up the ridge, because the neighbors have one and it seems to work for them. There is no center holding any of it together. And into that patchwork of half-obedience, the old gods come creeping back. Baal for the rain, Ashtoreth for the fields, until the line between Israel and Canaan blurs almost to nothing. I have stood in that valley myself. In 2004, and again years later, I walked the highland country north of Jerusalem, and I climbed the tells, those flat-topped mounds that are really cities stacked on cities, layer on layer, going down through the centuries. And when the archaeologists cut into them, you can read the destruction with your own eyes. A band of ash, broken storage jars, a collapsed floor. Then people rebuild right on top, and a few generations later, another band of ash. I taught history for 30 years, and I thought I understood the word cycle. I did not really, until I stood on a mound in the hill country and saw a nation's rise and ruin pressed into the dirt like pages in a book nobody had bothered to close. That is what the Iron Age looked like in the highlands where these stories happened. The 12th and 11th centuries before Christ, small villages appearing and burning and rising again. The record in the ground and the record on the scroll are telling the same story. A people who could not hold what they were given, sliding back down every time they climbed. So, why would anyone write it this way? That is the question I keep circling back to. When a nation tells its own history, it usually cleans it up. It carves the victories in stone and lets the shameful parts rot. But whoever gave us Judges did the opposite. He kept the assassinations. He kept the human sacrifice. He kept the night so dark, I can barely read it aloud. He arranged the whole descent like a lawyer building a case, and a case is always an argument aimed at somebody. I am not going to tell you yet what the argument is, or who it was aimed at, or what it was arguing for. That answer lives at the very end of this book, and if I hand it to you now, the whole descent loses its weight. But I will promise you this: every judge we are about to meet, every blade and every broken vow, is one more exhibit the writer is laying on the table. He is building towards something, and it starts with a man nobody remembers, a clean first cycle, before the real dark sets in. Let me show you the first blade. The first turn of the wheel is almost gentle, and I think that is deliberate. The writer shows you the pattern clean before he shows you the pattern rotten. His name is Othniel, Caleb's younger kinsman, and you get him in 5 short verses, Judges 3, verses 7 through 11. Israel forgets the Lord and serves the Baals. So God sells them into the hand of Cushan-Rishathaim, a king out of Mesopotamia whose name the storyteller seems to relish, because it can be read to mean something like Cushan of double wickedness, 8 years under his heel. Then Israel cries out. The Spirit of the Lord comes upon Othniel. He goes to war. God delivers the enemy into his hand, and the land has rest for 40 years. That is the template in its purest form. Notice what is in it and what is not. There is sin, and there is a foreign oppressor, and there is a cry, and there is a spirit-empowered deliverer, and there is peace. There is no scandal, no trickery, no body count that turns your stomach. Othniel prays, fights, wins, and dies, and the land breathes. Remember this clean version, because you will not see another one like it. The writer hands it to you as a measuring stick. Everything after this is going to be measured against Othniel, and everything after this is going to come up short and dark. Keep him in the corner of your eye, because the second judge is where the knife comes out. Israel does evil again, and this time God strengthens Eglon, king of Moab, a man the text bluntly calls very fat, and for 18 years Israel serves him. Then they cry out, and God raises up Ehud, a Benjamite. And here the writer drops a detail he wants you to hold. Ehud was left-handed. In a world where the sword hung on the left hip to be drawn by the right hand, a left-handed man could hide a blade where no guard would think to check. So Ehud makes himself a dagger, double-edged, about a cubit long, call it 18 inches, and he straps it to his right thigh, under his robe, and he walks into the presence of the king of Moab, carrying tribute in his hands, and death against his leg. Notice how patient he is. He delivers the tribute. He turns to leave, gets as far as the carved stones near Gilgal, and comes back. "I have a secret errand for you, O king," he says. And Eglon, greedy for a secret, sends his servants out and receives Ehud alone in his cool upper chamber, the private roof room built to catch the breeze. They are alone behind a locked door. "I have a message from God for you," Ehud says. The king rises from his seat, and Ehud reaches with his left hand, draws that hidden blade from his right thigh, and drives it into the king's belly. The text does not blink. The fat closes over the hilt so that he cannot pull it back out, and the filth comes out. Then Ehud steps into the porch, shuts the doors of the upper room behind him, and locks them. And this is the part that tells you what kind of book you are reading. The servants come back and find the doors locked, and they assume the king is relieving himself, so they wait. They wait, embarrassed, until they are ashamed, while their master lies dead on the floor. And that whole time, Ehud is walking free, escaping past the very stones where he turned around, blowing a trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, raising an army. He is not caught. God does not rebuke him. The land is rest for 80 years. Sit with that. The Spirit of the Lord is not mentioned this time, but the deliverance stands, and the darkness has entered the room. Then, almost as a footnote, comes a single verse. Judges 3, verse 31. After him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, who killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad, and he also delivered Israel. That is all we get. One sentence. But look at the weapon. An ox goad is a farmer's stick, a long pole with a sharpened point on, one end for prodding cattle, and a flat blade on the other for scraping the plow. It is not a soldier's weapon. It is what you grab when the soldiers are gone, and the enemy is at the edge of your field, and you have nothing else in your hands. 600 men and a cattle prod. Real talk. That is not a triumph. That is a nation. So stripped of everything that its rescue comes down to a plowman, swinging the only tool he owns. Do you feel the ground shifting under you? Follow the line from Othniel to Shamgar. The first judge fights a proper war and wins a proper peace. The second one hides a blade under his robe and guts a king in a locked room. The third one is a farmer with a stick against 600 men. In 3 short episodes, the writer has moved us from open battle to political assassination to desperate, improvised survival. The rescues are still coming. God is still answering the cry, but the shape of the rescue keeps getting stranger, lonelier, bloodier. That is the spiral doing its work. That is the drain pulling. And I want to be careful here, because it would be easy to turn Ehud into a Sunday school hero or a villain, and he is neither. The writer is not asking you to admire the dagger or to condemn it. He is showing you a people so far gone that this is what deliverance has to look like now. The clean 40 years of Othniel are already behind us. What is in front of us is darker, and the writer knows it, and he is not going to protect you from it. So brace yourself, because we are about to leave the world of lone men with hidden blades and step into a full-scale war. 900 iron chariots, a prophet who is also a woman, a general who will not move without her, and a housewife with a hammer who ends the whole thing in the quiet of her own tent. The wheel is turning again. Let me take you to the palm tree where Deborah sat. The next rescuer breaks the mold before the story even starts, and I love that the writer does not apologize for it. Judges 4, verses 4 and 5. Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, she judged Israel at that time. She sat under a palm tree between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the children of Israel came up to her for judgment. Stop and take that in. Every other judge in this book is defined by what he does on a battlefield. Deborah is defined first by what she hears from God. She is a prophet before she is a general. In a book full of men with blades, the clearest voice for the Lord belongs to a woman sitting under a tree, and the whole nation walks up the ridge to hear her. Most of us were taught to read the judges as warriors first, but Deborah reverses the order, and I think that reversal is the point. She sends for Barak and gives him the word of the Lord plainly. Take 10,000 men to Mount Tabor, and God will draw out Sisera, the commander of the Canaanite army, and deliver him into your hand. And Barak, the general, the man with the sword, answers like a frightened child. If you will go with me, then I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go. Read that again. The soldier will not march unless the prophetess comes along. So Deborah goes, but she tells him the road he chose has a cost. The Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman. Barak wanted the glory shielded by her presence. He will lose the glory to a woman's hand instead. Now the battle. Sisera has 900 chariots of iron, the tanks of the ancient world, heavy war cars with iron fittings that a foot soldier could not stand against on open ground. For 20 years, these chariots have terrorized the valleys. Israel has nothing that can meet them. And this is where the God who has gone quiet for whole chapters suddenly moves. But he moves through the weather, not through a miracle anyone can photograph. Deborah gives the command, "Up, for this is the day the Lord has delivered Sisera into your hand." And Barak charges down Tabor with his 10,000. And the Kishon, the little brook at the foot of the mountain, comes up in flood. Chapter 5 will say the stars fought from heaven. The river swept them away. Those 900 iron chariots, the pride of Canaan, bogged down in the mud, and the thing that made them invincible on dry ground makes them coffins in the wet. The army that could not be beaten is drowned and cut down, and Sisera, the great commander, climbs off his chariot and runs away on foot. The mighty man ends the day as a fugitive with mud on his legs, and he runs to the wrong tent. There is a woman named Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, and her clan is at peace with Sisera's king, so he thinks he is safe. She comes out to meet him. "Turn in, my lord, turn in to me, fear not." She covers him with a rug. He asks for water, and she opens a skin of milk and gives him a warm drink, the kind of thing that puts an exhausted man to sleep. "Stand at the door and watch," he tells her, "and if anyone asks, say no one is here." Then he closes his eyes. And Jael, Judges 4, verse 21, takes a tent peg in one hand and a hammer in the other, the ordinary tools she used every day to pitch that tent, because in the nomad camps, it was the women who set the tents. And she comes softly to the sleeping man and drives the peg through his temple and into the ground. He never wakes. The commander of 900 chariots is killed by a housewife with a hammer, in her sleep, under a blanket she tucked around him herself. Do you feel it? Every rule of that world is turned inside out here. Hospitality was sacred. You did not harm the guest you fed. Jael feeds him, covers him, guards his sleep, and kills him with the tools of her own tent. The writer is not celebrating the horror of it. He is showing you a world where even mercy has become a trap, where the safest-looking tent hides the killing peg. Barak arrives moments too late, chasing his enemy, and Deborah's word comes true to the letter. The glory went to a woman's hand. And then comes chapter 5, the Song of Deborah, one of the oldest pieces of Hebrew we have, a war song sung over the victory. For years I read it as pure triumph, drums and dancing, and I would have taught it that way. Then one afternoon at my kitchen table in Memphis, I got to the last scene of the song and had to stop, because it does not end on the battlefield. It ends at a window far away, where the mother of Sisera is watching the road, wondering why her boy's chariot is so late coming home. Her wise women comfort her. Surely they are dividing the spoil. And we, the listeners, know he is lying in a tent with a peg through his skull. My take is that the writer put that grieving mother there on purpose, to make sure the victory never feels clean. Even Israel's rescue leaves a woman at a window who will wait forever. That is the tone of this book. Deliverance and grief in the same breath. God answers, the enemy falls, and somewhere a mother keeps watching an empty road. The land has rest for 40 years, but the spiral has not stopped turning. And the next rescuer God raises up will start out hiding in a winepress, terrified, and end up building an idol that pulls the whole nation back into the dark. Let me introduce you to Gideon. When we meet Gideon, he is hiding. Judges 6, verses 11 and 12. The Midianites have been sweeping in every harvest for 7 years. Locusts on camels, stripping the fields bare and leaving Israel to starve in caves and mountain dens. So Gideon is down in a winepress, a pit cut into the rock, meant for stomping grapes, secretly beating out a little wheat where the raiders won't see the chaff blowing. And the angel of the Lord sits down under the oak beside him and says the most ironic thing in the whole book. "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor. Mighty man of valor," said to a man crouching in a hole, threshing grain in fear. I have read that line 100 times, and it still makes me shake my head. God does not call Gideon what he is. He calls him what he is going to become. And Gideon argues, if God is with us, why has all this happened? Where are the wonders our fathers told us about? He is honest, at least. Then he asks for a sign, and another sign. He lays out a wool fleece on the threshing floor overnight and asks God to make the fleece wet with dew while the ground stays dry. God does it. Then Gideon, still unsure, flips the test. Make the fleece dry and the ground wet this time. God does that too, patient with a frightened man's doubt. I've sat with this a long time, and I don't read Gideon's fleece as great faith. I read it as a scared man being carried by a patient God, one small proof at a time. Where I've landed is that the mighty man of valor was mostly valor God supplied, not valor Gideon started with. Then comes the strangest military order ever given. Gideon finally raises an army, 32,000 men, and God says it is too many. Judges 7. If Israel wins with an army that size, they will say their own hand saved them and forget the Lord. So God trims it. Anyone afraid, go home. 22,000 leave. 10,000 remain. And God says, still too many. Bring them to the water. Watch how they drink. Most kneel down and put their faces to the stream. But 300 scoop the water up in their hands and lap it while standing. Eyes still up, still watching the hills. Those 300 are the ones. From 32,000 down to 300. Less than one man in 100. Against a Midianite host, the text says was thick as locusts, their camels without number. And the weapons God gives them are not weapons at all. No swords drawn, no spears. Each man gets a trumpet, a clay jar, and a torch to hide inside the jar. In the black middle of the night, they surround the sleeping camp. 300 men spread thin around a valley full of enemies. And on Gideon's signal, they smash the jars all at once. So the hidden torches blaze up in a ring of fire, and they blow the trumpets, and they shout. 300 trumpets in the dark sound like 300 companies. The Midianites wake to fire on every side, and horns everywhere, and men screaming, and in the panic and confusion, they draw their swords against each other. The host destroys itself in the dark before Israel lands a blow. It is a real deliverance, and God gets the glory he said he wanted. No one can claim their own hand did this. Hold on to that picture, because Gideon at the winepress and Gideon at the trumpets is the high point of his story. A coward made brave, an impossible enemy scattered by clay jars and courage. If the book ended here, Gideon would be the flannel-board hero we were promised. But it does not end here. What Gideon does after the victory is where the light goes out of him, and where the rescuer quietly becomes the snare that pulls Israel back down. Let me show you the gold. After the victory, Israel comes to Gideon and offers him a crown. Rule over us, they say, you and your son and your grandson. And Gideon says the right thing. I will not rule over you, neither shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you. Beautiful words. If he had stopped there, we would remember him as the man who refused a throne. But he does not stop there. Judges 8, verses 24 through 27. He asks instead for a small favor. Just give me the golden earrings you stripped off the dead Midianites. And the people, grateful, spread out a cloak, and every man throws in his plunder, until Gideon is holding about 43 pounds of gold. And with that gold, he makes an ephod, a priestly garment, or maybe a gilded image. The text is not fully clear, and he sets it up in his hometown of Ophrah. Maybe he meant it as a monument to the victory. Maybe he meant it as a way to seek God without going to the tabernacle. But the writer tells you exactly what it became. All Israel went there and played the harlot after it, and it became a snare to Gideon and to his house. The man who refused to be king built the very thing that pulled the nation back into idolatry. The rescuer became the trap. I want to be honest about how much this one unsettles me. For years I read Gideon as a straightforward hero and skipped right past the ephod, the way I skipped past a lot of hard verses. Then I sat with it, slow, and I had to admit I'd been reading around the very line that mattered. Because this is the pattern of the whole book, showing up now inside a single man. Israel does not fall because some outside monster drags them down. Israel falls because the one who rescued them in his last act hands them a golden idol to worship. The darkness is not coming from Midian anymore. It is coming from the deliverer's own house. That is a harder, colder thing than any foreign army, and the writer will not let me look away from it. And it gets worse the moment Gideon dies, because he leaves 70 sons, and one of them is named Abimelech. His name means, "My father is king," the very crown Gideon claimed to refuse. And Abimelech wants it for real. Judges 9. He goes to his mother's people in Shechem and makes them a pitch. "Wouldn't you rather have one man rule you than 70? They give him silver from the temple of their idol, and he hires a gang of reckless, worthless men. And he goes to his father's house at Ophrah, and he murders his 70 brothers on one stone. One block of rock, 70 sons, a slaughter of a whole family to clear a path to power. Only the youngest, Jotham, escapes by hiding. This is a judge's bloodline turning on itself. The rescue has curdled all the way into fratricide. But the book keeps its grim accounting, because power taken by blood tends to end in blood. Abimelech rules 3 years, and then Shechem, the city that crowned him, turns against him, and he burns a tower full of his own people alive. Then he marches on another town, Thebez, and corners the survivors in a strong tower, and he comes close to the door to set it on fire the same way, and a woman up on the wall. The writer does not even give her a name, drops a millstone, the heavy upper stone of a hand mill, and it lands square on Abimelech's head and cracks his skull. Dying, ashamed that a woman struck him down, he begs his armor-bearer to run him through, so no one will say a woman killed him. And the young man does. That is how the first would-be king in Israel dies. Under a woman's millstone, begging to be finished off, in a story nobody reads at the dinner table. Feel where we are on the spiral now. We started with Othniel praying and winning a clean war. We have arrived at a man butchering 70 brothers on a stone to make himself king, and dying, with his skull caved in by a nameless woman on a wall. The wheel has dropped a long, long way, and it is not done dropping, because the next rescuer will make a promise to God with his mouth that costs him the one person he loves most. Let me take you to Jephthah, and to the vow at the door. Jephthah starts his life on the outside. Judges 11, verses 1 through 11. He was a mighty man of valor, the text says, but he was the son of a prostitute, and when his half-brothers, the sons of the proper wife, grew up, they threw him out. "You will not inherit in our father's house," they told him, "because you are the son of another woman." So Jephthah runs to a rough country called Tob, and worthless men gather to him, and he becomes what we would call a warlord, a captain of a raiding band, living by the strength of his arm, because the family that should have kept him cast him out. And then the wheel turns, and the Ammonites come up to make war on Israel. And suddenly the elders of Gilead, the same community that stood by while Jephthah was driven off, go looking for him. "Come and be our captain," they say, "so we can fight the Ammonites." And Jephthah, to his credit, names the thing out loud. "Did you not hate me and drive me out of my father's house? Why come to me now when you are in trouble?" There is a bitter honesty in that. Most of us know how it feels to be wanted only when we are useful. The nation that rejected him is begging the reject to save it. And that, right there, is a picture of the whole book in one man. Israel keeps throwing away what God gives it, then crying out for rescue when the enemy is at the gate. They swear an oath, and Jephthah agrees, and the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him, and he prepares for war. And here is where a good story turns dark, because Jephthah does something he did not need to do. Judges 11, verses 30 and 31. He makes a vow, "If you will surely deliver the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace, I will offer it up as a burnt offering." Read that slowly. Whatever comes out of the doors of my house. He is trying to buy God's help with a blank check written in blood. He does not need to. The Spirit is already on him. But he is a man who grew up earning everything, bargaining for everything, and he does not know how to simply receive. So he tries to strike a deal with heaven. And I want to sit with the danger in that, because it is a danger that is not ancient at all. Jephthah treats God like a man he can negotiate with, like the elders of Gilead. You give me the victory, I will give you a life. That is not faith. That is a transaction, and a reckless one, and the writer lets it stand there like a loaded gun on the table in the first act. God does not ask for this vow. God does not answer it. Jephthah made it alone, out of his own fear and his own habit of buying what he wanted. I believe the silence of God here is its own kind of verdict. Then the battle, told almost quickly, because the battle is not the point. Jephthah crushes the Ammonites. 20 cities, a great slaughter, and Israel is delivered. He comes home to Mizpah in triumph, and the doors of his house open. Judges 11, verse 34. And out comes his daughter, dancing, with tambourines in her hands, to meet her father, the conquering hero. The way women greeted returning armies. And she was his only child. Beside her he had neither son nor daughter. The one life he loved most in the world runs out through the very doors his vow had sentenced. He tears his clothes. Alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low. I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot go back. And here the writer gives us one of the most heartbreaking exchanges in all of Scripture, because the daughter does not run. She says, "My father, if you have opened your mouth to the Lord, do to me what you have promised." She asks only for 2 months, to go up and down the mountains with her friends and weep, because she will never marry, never have children, never be anything but her father's terrible oath fulfilled. And she comes back, and the text says he did with her according to his vow. It does not linger over the how. It just closes the door on a girl who trusted her father, and a father who trusted his own mouth more than God's mercy. I have to be careful how I read this, because people argue about what exactly happened to her, and the Hebrew leaves a small door open. But the writer's point does not depend on the details. The point is that a rescuer of Israel destroyed his own child to keep a promise God never asked for. Whatever else Judges is teaching, it is teaching that when a people lose their center, even their heroes start bargaining away their own children. That is how far down we have come. And Jephthah's story does not end in grief. It ends in more blood, because the men of Ephraim come to him picking a fight. Angry they were, not invited to the war. Judges 12, verses 5 and 6. Jephthah's men seize the fords of the Jordan, the shallow crossing places, and they invent a test. When a fugitive from Ephraim tries to cross, they make him say one word, shibboleth. It means a stream or an ear of grain, but the sound is the whole point, because the Ephraimites could not make the sh. They said sibboleth. And when a man said it wrong, they killed him right there at the river. 42,000 of Ephraim fell that day, Israelite against Israelite, slaughtered over the way they pronounced a single word. Let that land. The enemy in this chapter is not Ammon or Midian or Moab. The enemy is the next tribe over. Israel is now killing Israel, tens of thousands of them, sorting brothers by their accent at a river crossing. The wheel that started with a foreign oppressor has turned so far that the nation is butchering itself. And we are not even at the bottom yet, because the strongest man God ever raised up in this book is about to walk in. A man set apart from the womb, gifted with power no enemy could match, and squander every bit of it. Let me tell you about Samson. Samson is set apart before he is even born. Judges 13. An angel comes to a barren woman, the wife of Manoah, and tells her she will bear a son, and that son is to be a Nazirite from the womb. Now let me stop and say plainly what a Nazirite was, because the word means nothing to most of us. It was a person under a special vow of dedication to God. No wine, no touching a dead body, and above all, no razor ever on the head. The uncut hair was the visible sign the outward mark that this life belonged wholly to the Lord. Samson gets that vow handed to him before his first breath. He is born holy, born marked, born with a calling most men would give anything for, and he spends it all on his appetites. That is the tragedy the writer keeps circling. This is the only judge given a miraculous birth, the only one dedicated from the womb, the one with raw strength no enemy in the book can match, and he treats it like a toy. His first recorded act as a grown man is to demand a Philistine wife because he saw her and she looked good to him. His parents object. The Philistines are the oppressors. He does not care. "Get her for me," he says. "She pleases me well." The mightiest gift in the book, aimed entirely at what pleases Samson. On the way to that wedding, a young lion roars at him, and the Spirit of the Lord rushes on him, and he tears the lion apart with his bare hands, like a man tearing a young goat, and tells no one. Later, he passes the carcass and finds bees have made honey in it, and he scoops the honey out and eats it. A Nazirite, remember, forbidden to touch the dead, now eating out of a rotting corpse, and telling no one that either. Then, at the wedding feast, he turns the whole thing into a game. He poses a riddle to 30 Philistine men. Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. Betting them 30 changes of clothes, they cannot solve it. Real talk. This is a man using holy strength as a party trick, gambling and showing off at his own wedding. The riddle gets his new wife threatened. She pries the answer out of him in tears. The Philistines win the bet, and Samson flies into a rage, kills 30 men in another town just to pay the debt with their clothes, and storms off. And it spirals from there. Judges 15. When they give his wife to another man, Samson catches 300 foxes, ties them tail to tail in pairs with a torch between, and turns them loose in the Philistine grain fields, and the standing harvest and the olive groves go up in flame. The Philistines answer by burning his wife and her father alive. He answers that by slaughtering them killing 1,000 men with the jawbone of a donkey. Do you see the machine he is caught in? Every act of vengeance breeds a bigger one. His whole life becomes a private feud, fought with a public gift. Strength meant to deliver a nation spent settling his own scores. But strength alone was never his weakness. His weakness was always a woman's voice at the end of a long day, and the Philistines finally learned to aim there. Enter Delilah. Judges 16. They pay her 1,100 pieces of silver each, a fortune, to find the secret of his strength. And she does not sneak. She asks him, openly, again and again, "Tell me where your great strength lies." 3 times he lies to her, and 3 times she tries the lie on him. Bind him, weaken him, and 3 times he laughs it off and snaps the ropes. He knows exactly what she is doing. He watches her set the trap over and over and lies back down in her lap anyway. Then verse 16 tells you how he finally breaks. She pressed him daily with her words and urged him until his soul was vexed unto death, not tortured, nagged, worn down day after day, until he is so sick of the pestering that he hands over his own life just to make the words stop. "My hair," he tells her, "if it is shaved, my strength leaves me." She lulls him to sleep on her knees, calls in a man to shave off the 7 locks of his head, and the strength goes. And here is the line I cannot get past, the saddest sentence in the book. He awoke out of his sleep and said, "I will go out as at other times before, and shake myself." And he knew not that the Lord was departed from him. He does not even feel God leave. He reaches for the strength on reflex, expecting it to be there, the way it always had been, and there is nothing. The holiest man in the book is now the emptiest, and he did not even notice the moment it happened. What the Philistines do next is almost too grim to say out loud. Judges 16, verse 21. They took him, and put out his eyes, and brought him down to Gaza, and bound him with fetters of brass, and he did grind in the prison house. Picture the strongest man who ever lived. They gouge out the eyes that led him from one woman to the next. They drag him down to the enemy's city in chains, and they set him to grinding grain at the mill. The heavy, circling, mind-numbing labor of an ox or a slave, walking the same blind circle hour after hour in the dark. The man who tore a lion apart is now turning a millstone he cannot see in the house of his enemies for their bread. The spiral has a physical shape now, and it is a blind man walking in circles. I taught teenagers for 30 years, and Samson is the student I could never stop thinking about. The gifted one who throws it all away, and you can see it coming for years, and you cannot stop it. For a long time I read Samson as simply a fool, and honestly, I judged him. My father would have read this chapter and gone quiet, and back then I did not understand the quiet. I do now. Because the older I get, the less I see a cartoon, and the more I see a mirror. Here is a man handed everything by God. Strength, calling, a mark of holiness from the womb, who spent it all chasing what pleased him in the moment. Sure, the gift would always be there when he reached for it. And it was, right up until it wasn't. What frightens me about Samson is not that he was a monster, it is that he was not. He was a man who assumed grace was a possession he owned instead of a presence he could lose. I have been that man on a smaller scale, and if you are honest, so have you. That is why the writer bothered to tell us he did not even feel God leave. But the writer leaves you one detail, small and quiet, that changes everything. Judges 16, verse 22. Howbeit the hair of his head began to grow again after he was shaven. That is all. One sentence, easy to miss. The hair, the sign of the vow, the mark of belonging to God, slowly coming back on a blind slave in an enemy prison. The writer plants it there, so you will be watching for what it means. And here comes the end. The Philistine lords throw a great festival to their god Dagon, thousands of them packed into the temple and up on the flat roof. And they call for Samson to be brought out so they can laugh at him. Our God has delivered our enemy into our hands, they shout. They stand the blind man between the two central pillars that hold up the whole building, and they make him perform. And Samson asks the boy leading him by the hand to let him feel the pillars so he can lean on them. Then he prays, and it is the first time in his whole life the record shows him praying for anything but himself. O Lord God, remember me and strengthen me only this once. Judges 16, verse 28. And he takes hold of the two middle pillars, one with his right hand and one with his left, and he says, "Let me die with the Philistines." And he bows with all his might. And the temple comes down, the roof, the lords, the 3,000 watching from above, and Samson under all of it. The writer gives you the final accounting in verse 30, and it is devastating. So the dead which he slew at his death were more than they which he slew in his life. Read that again and feel the weight of it. His greatest victory came in his death, as a blind slave in the enemy's temple, praying for strength one last time. God answered. The gift came back for one final act. But it came back for a man who had already lost his eyes, his freedom, and every year he might have lived. That is the peak of this book. And notice what kind of peak it is. Not a triumph you cheer, a ruin you mourn. The strongest man God ever raised up ends buried under a pagan temple he pulled down on his own head. If you have been keeping count with me, you feel how far we have fallen from Othniel's clean 40 years of rest. And I need to warn you before we go on. The last 3 chapters of Judges have no judge in them at all. God raises up no one. The rescues stop. And what happens when the rescues stop? is the darkest thing in the book. Take a breath. Then come with me to the bottom. The last chapters of Judges do not begin with an enemy invasion. They begin with a refrain, and the refrain is the key to everything. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. You heard pieces of that line earlier in the book. Now the writer says it flat out, twice at the start of these chapters, and once at the very end, framing the darkness like a caption under a photograph. There is no king, there is no center, and with no center, every man becomes his own law. Look what that produces. Judges 17. A man named Micah, up in the hill country of Ephraim, steals 1,100 pieces of silver from his own mother, gives it back when she curses the thief, and she, grateful, has some of it melted into a carved idol for the house. Then Micah sets up a little private shrine, makes an ephod and household gods, and ordains one of his own sons as his personal priest. Homemade religion, cooked up in a family kitchen. And when a wandering Levite comes through, a young man of the priestly tribe looking for a place, Micah hires him on the spot. Stay with me. Be a father and a priest to me, and I will pay you 10 pieces of silver a year, a suit of clothes, and your food. A priest of God, working for wages, for a shrine full of stolen silver idols. That is where Israel's worship has landed. Everyone building his own god and hiring his own holy man. It gets worse, because a whole tribe does the same thing on a large scale. The Danites, looking for land, send spies, find Micah's setup, and simply take it. They walk off with his idols and his priest, offering the young Levite a better deal. Better to be priest to a tribe than to one man's house, they tell him, and his heart is glad, and he goes. Micah chases after them, and they threaten to kill him, and he goes home empty-handed, robbed of the gods he made. There is something almost bitterly funny in it. A man weeping over stolen idols he stole the silver to build. But it is not funny, not really. It is a whole people who have forgotten God so completely that faith has become furniture you can carry off in a raid. And then the writer takes us into the dark. He has been warning us about the whole book, and I am going to tell it carefully, because it is meant to be hard. Judges 19. Another Levite, another journey. He and his concubine, a kind of second-rank wife, are traveling home and stop for the night in Gibeah, a town belonging to the tribe of Benjamin, fellow Israelites, and no one takes them in. Only one old man, himself a stranger there, brings them into his house for the night. And that night, the men of the city surround the house, pounding on the door, demanding to abuse the traveler. This is Israelites, remember, behaving exactly like the men of Sodom in Genesis, in one of their own towns. What follows I will not dwell on, because the writer himself refuses to make it entertainment. In the horror of that night, the traveler's concubine is thrown to the mob and abused until she dies. And in the grey of morning, she is found collapsed at the door, her hands on the threshold. It is the lowest human moment in the entire book. And what the Levite does next is almost as chilling as the crime. He takes her body home, and he cuts it into 12 pieces, and he sends one piece to each of the 12 tribes of Israel, a horror mailed across the whole nation as a summons. And the message that goes with it is simple. Consider this, take counsel, and speak. Has anything like this ever happened since Israel came out of Egypt? The whole country recoils. And now Israel is going to turn its swords on itself. The nation gathers, 400,000 men with swords, and demands that Benjamin hand over the guilty men of Gibeah for justice. And here is where the tragedy doubles. Benjamin refuses. They will not give up their own, even for a crime like this. So the tribe closes ranks around its worst men, and Israel goes to war against one of its own 12 tribes. Judges 20. Brothers against brothers again, but this time not over an accent at a river. This time it is the entire nation against the tribe of Benjamin, and the fighting is savage. Israel is thrown back twice with terrible losses. Tens of thousands dead in the first 2 days, before the tide finally turns and they break Benjamin in an ambush and burn its cities. And they do not stop at justice. They keep killing until the tribe of Benjamin is all but wiped from the earth. When the smoke clears, 25,000 and more of Benjamin's fighting men are dead. Their towns are ash, and only 600 men survive, hiding on a rock in the wilderness. 600 men. That is all that is left of a whole tribe of Israel, one of the 12 sons of Jacob, nearly erased by his own brothers. The writer wants you to feel the full weight of that. The nation that could not unite to drive out the Canaanites has finally united, to nearly destroy one of its own. And then, in a final grim twist, Israel weeps over what it has done. They realize that one of the 12 tribes is about to vanish, because they had sworn an oath not to give their daughters to Benjamin as wives. And now those 600 survivors have no way to rebuild. So to fix a catastrophe born of their own rage, they engineer 2 more. They wipe out a town that skipped the assembly to seize its young women for Benjamin. And then they arrange for the rest to carry off girls dancing at a festival. Every solution in these chapters is another wound. There is no wisdom left anywhere. There is only damage control by people who long ago lost the thread of who they were. And then the book ends. Not with a victory, not with a prayer, not with a rescuer riding in. It ends with that same refrain one last time, and it lands like a stone dropping into a well. Judges 21 verse 25. In those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. That is the final verse. That is the bottom of the spiral. Sit with it a moment. The book that opened with a locked room and a hidden blade closes with a dismembered nation and a single, exhausted sentence explaining all of it. No king. Every man his own law. And the writer simply sets down his pen there and lets the silence do the rest. I have read the last chapters of a lot of books. I have never read an ending as deliberately bleak as this one. There is no redemption on the page. There is no hero waiting in the wings. The writer refuses to give you relief, and I want you to notice that refusal, because it is not carelessness. It is the whole argument. He has walked you down every step. Assassination, human sacrifice, brother killing brother, a tribe nearly erased. And at the very bottom, he does not comfort you. He just points at the emptiness and says, "This is what it looks like when everyone does what is right in his own eyes." This is a people with no king. And that word, king, is the thread I have been holding back from you this entire time. Because that refrain is not a lament thrown in at the end. It is the reason the whole book was written the way it was. The darkness had a purpose. The descent was an argument. And now, finally, I can show you what it was arguing for. Go back and hear that refrain the way the writer meant it. In those days, there was no king in Israel. He is not just describing the era. He is diagnosing it. Every horror we walked through, the hidden blade, the golden idol, the sacrificed daughter, the accent test at the river, the night in Gibeah, the tribe nearly erased. He lays each one at the feet of a single missing thing. No king, no shepherd over the flock, no center to hold the nation to its God. The whole descent, arranged so carefully, getting darker every chapter, was built to make you ache for the one thing Israel did not have. The book is engineered. It is a case, and the verdict it wants from you is a longing, and that longing is exactly what happens next in the story. Turn the page out of Judges and into the books that follow, and you find Israel doing precisely what the writers set them up to do. 1 Samuel, chapter 8. The elders come to the old prophet Samuel and say, "Give us a king to judge us, like all the other nations." After 300 years of the spiral, the people finally cry out, not for another judge, but for a throne. The darkness worked its argument all the way to its conclusion. Judges was written, at least in part, to explain why Israel needed a king, and to make its readers feel that need in their bones before the monarchy ever began. But here is where I have to be honest, and where the story turns from clever to deep, because the kings, when they come, do not fix it. Saul, the first one, ends his life falling on his own sword on a mountain, as dark an ending as anything in Judges. David, the great one, the man after God's own heart, still breaks the very things he loves. Solomon's wisdom rots into idolatry. The human kings turn the wheel right along with the judges. So, if you read carefully, Judges is not finally pointing at Saul, or David, or any crown you could put on a man's head. It is pointing past all of them. It is teaching a people to hunger for a king, and then teaching them that no human king will ever be enough. The ache it creates is bigger than any throne in Jerusalem could fill. I believe that is the deepest thing this dark book is doing. It is digging a hunger it does not satisfy on purpose, so that when the true king finally comes, the king who does not fail, who does not sacrifice his child but becomes the sacrifice, who does not lose the spirit like Samson but is full of it, you will know him by the shape of the hole he fills. I am not going to set dates or draw modern maps here. That is not my place and not the texts. I am just telling you what I have come to see. The darkest book in the Bible was written by someone who believed the darkness was not the end of the story. He held the light back so you would want it. He never once told you it wasn't coming. So let me say something to you directly, the way I'd say it to a young teacher across my kitchen table in Memphis. If you have been sitting with your own spiral lately, your own stretch of doing what was right in your own eyes and watching it go wrong, you are reading the right book. Judges is not here to shame you. For years I read it as a horror story and closed it fast. It took me a long time, and my father's quiet, to understand that it is really a book about how badly we need a king, and how patiently God waits while we figure that out. That is not a small comfort. That is the whole hope hiding under all that dark. Here is where I want to leave it. Scripture invites us into the story. What you saw today is one telling, my telling, as a man who has walked those hills and read those chapters slow, and the text underneath it is deeper than any retelling can ever capture. Read the book of Judges for yourself. Read it all the way to that last bleak verse, and then feel what it makes you long for. And when you do, come back and tell me it changed how you read it. That is the whole reason I do this. If this walk down the spiral moved you, leave me one word in the comments. King. Just that. Let me see how many of us heard the same thing under all that darkness. Share this with somebody who thinks they already know the book of Judges, and subscribe, because there is another lost chapter of this record waiting, and I want to walk it with you. Until then, read it slow. The dark was never the last word. He is. One last word before you go. Everything you heard tonight, I read from Scripture. I am not summoning anything, and I am not here to make you afraid of the dark. I am here to make you stand in awe of the God who rules it. I quote the King James Version, unless I say otherwise. The shadow is real, but it is not the last word. He is.